Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid Bhatt. And let's talk about the topics that we will be talking about during the course of this 1 hour. Our first segment of the day is about the Indian atrocities in Kashmir. As you very well know, today is the 332nd day of the continued brutalization of innocent people in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Images of which, of course, were flashed across the world. Yesterday, you saw that as well when an elderly man was killed in front of his minor grandson during a gun battle with the Kashmiri fighters, which also left a trooper dead. We all saw the pictures of the grandson sitting beside the dead body of his martyr grandfather. This is not an isolated incident. This is an incident that is continuing every day. These images come seldom outside and are shared by, of course, everybody. But this is a continued process of Indian brutalization of the hapless people of Indian Jammu and Kashmir. We will be talking about that and more. What, of course, India is also leveling accusations on Pakistan that has been also neutralized by the DGISPR, who says the news circulating in Indian social and electronic media that claim that additional deployment of Pakistan army troops along the line of control has happened in Gilgit-Baltistan and the alleged use of the Skardu airbase by China is false, irresponsible, and far from the truth. This is a statement, and of course, it negates all that has been said in the Indian media. Our second story of the day is the Afghan peace process. As you very well know, that Pakistan has always believed in an Afghan-owned and an Afghan-led peace process. But lately, our Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has warned Zalmi Khalilzad, who is a US Special Envoy for Afghan reconciliation, that there are certain elements who are trying to create havoc or trying to destabilize these Afghan peace process. Who or what can these elements be? We will be talking in our second segment that is based on the spoilers of the Afghan peace process. Our third segment is, of course, based on the coronavirus situation in Pakistan. The latest tally gives us 217,809 patients of corona, that is the COVID-19 in Pakistan. And of course, there have been a regular amount of deaths every 24 hours that we, of course, tell you through our different news segments. What is the government strategy? The strategy, in fact, to deal with the situation of the COVID-19. We will be talking about that with a doctor, a renowned specialist, who will be, of course, giving us the latest information as far as the different strategies that are being applied around the world to deal with COVID-19. Now, let's begin with our first segment, Indian atrocities in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. You very well know this is nothing new. It has been happening since decades, but since August 5 last year, when the Article 370 and 35A were abolished, of course. Since then, there is a new spate of atrocities against the people. Around 900 troops are there in the Indian occupied valley. Today marks the 332nd day of the continued brutalization of these innocent and hapless Kashmiri people in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir region. Images of which you are also seeing on your screens were flashed across the world yesterday, depicting the level of callousness and inhumanity that was meted out by the Indian occupation forces. This 3-year-old boy whose picture was shared in Sopore will now remain etched in the minds of all those who have watched it, and this video also of the same 3-year-old boy. India really cannot wash away the truth by fake news and turning its propaganda machinery further. Also, there have been counter allegations by India when we talk about the whole process of what has happened at the line of actual control. India started to claim through its electronic and social media that Pakistan had put on troops and there was something that was happening there with China, but Pakistan has negated that through the DGISPR. We will be coming back after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid Bhatt. And as our leading segment, of course, talked about what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir, the Indian atrocities in Indian occupied Kashmir. The picture of this young boy that you are seeing, also watching on your television screens, made headlines on social media yesterday. This is a 3-year-old boy who was seen sitting next to the dead body of his martyred grandfather in Sopore. This is an image that is indicative of the way that the Indian forces continue unabated violence in Indian occupied Kashmir. 332 days have passed, 1,546 ceasefire violations also across the line of control in the first 6 months of 2020. to divert the attention from what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir. Dr. Tuqral Yamin, Foreign Affairs expert, joins us. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, 330 days have passed. This is the 332nd day of the Indian atrocity, especially after what happened on the 5th of August and the continued and unabated Indian atrocities on the hapless people of Indian occupied Kashmir, which of course you also saw an escalation of recently, and that picture of the young boy as well. Will India never understand, or is it deliberate?
It's all deliberate, and they are getting away with it because the world is quiet. It is only Pakistan that is saying something. The Islamic organization, Islamic Conference is quiet. The Arab world is absolutely quiet. We have some modicum of support from Turkey or perhaps also from Iran once in a while. But the entire world watches as the Indians perpetrate barbarities. And this picture of the young infant sitting on top of him, on the chest of his grandfather, is a crying shame. What a pity. When will the world wake up? But you know what's happening in the United States of America? The people are being killed here because of the color of the skin, and the president is unmoved. So what kind of justice do you expect from a world which is totally gone crazy with this pandemic raging in the world? So it's a shame. It's a crying shame. What can one say?
But what is, which turn, Dr. Saab, which turn is it going to take? Because you said that this is going unabated, and the world is kind of turning a blind eye toward what is happening. And India is, of course, deliberately also taking advantage of the fact that there is a COVID-19 pandemic that is affecting the entire world. But what now? Because, you know, Pakistan is trying its level best on the different fora at the UN, at the OIC, and also putting into fact and putting into perspective all that India has been doing since the last decades, and especially since August 5th last year. I mean, do you see any solution, or is there no solution to it?
At the moment, there is no solution. And since our country is highly indebted, our word carries no weight. Nobody listens to us. You can go to UNSC, you can go to OIC, you can go anywhere, but nobody is going to listen to you. I am afraid the Kashmiris will continue to suffer under these barbarities. There will be killings, rape, murder, and we will just make noises. Unfortunately, it's highly unfortunate. Nobody is listening. And also, India is taking advantage of the situation. They got a beating from the Chinese, but now they are turning their attention either to the occupied Kashmir, or they are sponsoring BLA agents to storm Pakistan Stock Exchange. So that's what India is doing. If India is getting away, nobody is stopping them. Even the Chinese have got what they wanted in Ladakh, and I don't think they will go any further, because this is something really which concerns the Kashmiris, and it concerns the Pakistanis. So
all right.
We have to.
All right. Dr. Tuqral Yamin Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. It's a very negative situation that is coming out of the Indian occupied Kashmir. I just hope and I wish that the powers that be understand and act before it's way too late. Our second segment of the day is about the warning that Pakistan has given about spoilers of the Afghan peace process. This happened during a meeting between the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and the United Nations Special Envoy for Afghan Reconciliation Zalmay Khalilzad. Now, to talk more about that, we've been joined by Brigadier Retired Tipu Sultan, who's a defense analyst. Brigadier Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Sir, how do you view these spoilers that have been indicated by Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab to Zalmay Khalilzad Saab during their meeting on Wednesday? What do you feel? How important is the role of these spoilers to actually create havoc in the Afghan peace process that has begun between the Afghan Taliban and the Afghan government?
Yeah, before we talk about the spoilers and Zalmay Khalilzad's visit to Shah Mahmood Qureshi, I think we need to consider a couple of things which are very important. Number one, that Ashraf Ghani and Abdullah have joined hands, and Kabul's government has become strong. I think it will be a very tall order for the Taliban to dislodge the government and occupy Kabul, capture Kabul, which was in the offing when these two gentlemen were at loggerheads. Now they are not. So the government in Kabul is relatively stronger. The second thing which has happened is that Mullah Umar's son, Mullah Yaqub, has been given priority over Haqqanis. That's a very, very significant move. I think if you look at the Sirajuddin Haqqani and Jalaluddin Haqqani's son, they were responsible for the political wing as well as the military wing. Mullah Yaqub has been the Taliban have decided that Yaqub will be superimposed on Haqqanis, and that in fact is sort injected a sort of an imbalance into the Taliban power. I think the government in Kabul understands that the Taliban will not be able to capture the major cities anytime soon. That is very important. The other thing
All
that
right.
has happened is that the Taliban are asking that they should release the Taliban prisoners with the Kabul government. And the Americans are saying that some of them are very hardcore terrorists and they can't be releasing that. And you know what followed the Trump tweet on Afghan peace process. So in the backdrop of that, Zalmay Khalidulah's visit to Shah Mahmood Qureshi, and we have to consider what leverage Pakistan has now over Kabul when the Americans are still there. So I think although the officers in Doha are being cleaned up for resumption of talks, but the intra-Afghan dialogue has not taken place since the Doha agreement. So that
All
is
right,
the
Brigadier
setting.
Sahab, let's talk about this intra-Afghan. Let's talk about this intra-Afghan dialogue. This was to start in Doha. That has now, for the moment, been delayed. And the main reason, what analysts say, is because of the release of the prisoners, the exchange of prisoners that was to take place. Is that the only reason?
No, that is not the only reason. I think what the Americans want from Taliban is to a significant reduction on violence. The Taliban attack on Afghan security forces and all that, on the major installations. That is number one. And number two, the Americans want to go slow on release of certain prisoners that the Kabul government is holding. And the third thing is that the Russians, the Chinese, and the Americans, they may not be internally interested too much in Taliban.
All right.
That is a very significant factor. The Chinese don't mind if the Kabul government succeeds. So the Taliban will have to weigh their options very, very carefully. Although
All right, the Taliban will have to waive their options. Thank you very much, Brigadier Retired Tipu Sultan Sahab, to have talked to us. We've now been joined by Dr. Hussain Shaheen Sohrawardy, who is a foreign affairs expert. Dr. Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Sahab, we were just talking to Brigadier Tipu Sultan Sahab. He said that there are certain issues in Afghanistan as far as the Taliban is concerned, also some issues between the American government and the Taliban. And those could be the reasons, in addition to the exchange of troops that has not really taken place to its fullest between the Afghan government and the Afghan Taliban. What more reasons could you point out?
At the moment, the situation in Afghanistan is quite strange because the government is making itself integrated to speak with all the factions of fighting forces. We call it an intra-Afghan dialogue. At the same time, Americans are quite much in hurry. They want to somehow wind up everything. And that is one of the big reasons that we are seeing that Zalmay Khalilzad once again visits Islamabad, and he is meeting all those stakeholders at the moment. And of course, Pakistan is very much interested in peace in Afghanistan, and Pakistan has facilitated it in any possible way. However, now the situation is that we have to the world community has to bring all of them together at one negotiating table. How will that take place? That is the question of the question. Dr. Abdullah has given a very positive statement. He says that my responsibility is not only to bring all Afghans to intra-Afghan dialogue, but also to succeed. And he says that if I fail, I will resign from my position, which means that he would no longer be in government. So in the circumstances, I am looking up very positive to the initiatives of Dr. Abdullah. I am really very satisfied with the accord and agreement between Dr. Abdullah and Dr. Ashraf Ghani. Probably this would bring some fruit, something positive will come out of it. But the the dark side of this entire situation is that war is still taking place. If that can be halted, that would muster more positivities in
All right, Dr.
international.
Sohrawardy, you talked about the violence that is continuing in Afghanistan. Now, one of the preconditions of the US government is also, as far as the Taliban is concerned, that they reduce the violence. Will they agree eventually to reduce this violence? Because in the past also the US had asked, they said yes, and then as the intra-Afghan dialogue process was not going on and they were not releasing the prisoners, so the Afghan Taliban had restarted their campaign of violence in Afghanistan. So how is it going to play along now?
Yes, this is something really important, and I was about to knock this point, and that is that when insurgency takes place, when there are warriors, when there are insurgents, when there are, I say, separatist movements, or for that matter, terrorists, they cannot go for negotiations at one end and stop fighting. Because once they stop fighting, they are not a regular army. They have to keep their fighters' morale up by keeping both processes together simultaneously, which means negotiations as well as fighting. In civilized world, we think that fighting has to stop and negotiations have to start. But from their perspective, this is not possible. We have seen in numerous instances, say for example, in Sri Lanka, LTTE, numerous times it was stated that stop violence and start negotiations. But they say that we will continue with that. And so was the case
Let's
with
talk
Red
about
Brigade
negotiations, Dr. Sohrawardy. Let's talk about the C5+1 process that the US Special Representative for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, is so keen upon. He visited Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, and the Kyrgyz province before coming to Pakistan. And he wants to involve all these countries in the Afghan peace process. How important is the involvement of all these countries?
Well, that is once again a very important and very direct question that you have asked. Afghanistan's civil war is affected more by its neighbors than by Afghanis themselves, which means that every almost neighboring country has some kind of stakes in it, and therefore they are supporting different factions. If neighboring countries are satisfied, if they are, they lift their hands and they lift their hands from any group that is fighting inside, they would be dried away. So in the circumstances, I believe this is a very positive effort on the part of Americans, that they are taking into notice and they are taking into confidence all neighboring countries.
All right, Dr. Sohrawardy, Shah Mahmood Qureshi Sahab also, while talking to Zalmay Khalilzad, reaffirmed Pakistan's continued support for the Afghan peace process. They have been saying time and again, as been our government, that we believe in an Afghan-owned and an Afghan-led peace process. And he also said that Pakistan remains committed to working with the international as well as regional stakeholders for sustainable, peaceful and political resolution of the Afghan dispute. So there are more than one players now in this Afghan peace process. In the beginning, there was Pakistan and the US and the Afghan government, and now there are more players by involving the other C5 as well. Now, which player do you feel is more important? We know Pakistan's role. We all know how important Pakistan has been for the promotion of the Afghan peace process, to bring the Afghan Taliban and the Afghan government together as well, on the, of course, initiation of US when they asked Pakistan to do so. But how is Pakistan's contribution going to continue now that more players are involved?
Well, you have asked really once again a very important question. I believe that this is the high time that all these neighboring countries, especially Russia, especially Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, because their factions from their side are more, and from our side it is Pakistan, if they are taken into confidence, because their role is very important. People are influenced by them so that they may stop fighting and start negotiating. One of the wonderful examples, we have seen that in Doha peace agreement, Taliban were there, who were influenced by Pakistan. They were pushed for these negotiations, and Americans were really, they acknowledged that. And even Zalmay Khalilzad, during agreement in February in Doha, he also acknowledged that our friends, especially Pakistan, supported us a lot, and they really influenced Taliban. And even so was the case with Dr. Mullah Ghani brother, who acknowledged Pakistan's efforts. I believe such efforts, if are made, say with sincerity and genuinity, I think the Center of Gun dialogue will succeed.
All right, now, Dr. Sohrawardy, let's talk about Dr. Mullah Baradar, that, of course, you mentioned right now. He said in a video conference with the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo that the delay in the start of the negotiations between the Afghan government and the Afghan Taliban was because of the delay in the release of the detainees. How long is this going to continue? This delay in the release of detainees, in your point of view?
I believe I believe that is something which was really terrible. It shouldn't have been delayed that much. I think that was something like snobbish attitude on the part of Kabul administration. They took a lot of time really in releasing Taliban detainees. Whereas from the Taliban side, people were released so quickly, and swap of this prisoners took place very amicably. There are only 1,000 Taliban prisoners who would be released very soon. That is one of the big reasons that I am still very hopeful that very soon, which means in the next couple of months, intra-Afghan dialogue will take place.
All right. Now, Dr. Sohrawardy, as the US has mentioned to the Afghan Taliban that it has restarted its violent campaign in Afghanistan, but there are certain incidents that the Taliban have not attributed themselves to. And that is the reason why our foreign minister points towards these sinister designs of the spoiler elements. Who can be these sinister design and who can be these spoiler elements that are deliberately trying to spoil this peace process, intra-Afghan peace dialogue between the Afghan parties?
Every that country that is using Afghanistan as a battlefield for Cold War against their enemy country would be spoiler. So in the present circumstances, there might be just vis-a-vis Americans, there might be Russians who may use Afghan land, vis-a-vis Pakistan, it might be India that may use. And you know that in the past, very recent past, India has used Afghanistan as a land to fight against Pakistan. Afghanistan is a land which provides a wonderful opportunity to any two enemy countries to have their Cold War in their country. And that is the reason that it has been ruined more by the outsiders than by the people themselves. So I think that this is the high time that the Kabul administration must discourage such spoilers. They must say thanks, but no thanks, don't come in.
Very important point, very important point. Thank you so very much, Dr. Hussain Shaheen Sohrawardy, to have pointed out the spoiler elements that have been trying to sabotage the peace process between the Afghan Taliban and the Afghan government as well. We hope and we wish, of course, as we have always been, that this peace process goes forward, those spoiler elements are put on one side, and peace finally comes to Afghanistan. Well, our last segment of the day is on the pandemic, that is the COVID-19 that is affecting every country, including Pakistan. The latest figures show 217,809 patients in Pakistan alone. That is a staggering figure, and what is expected is that this figure is going to rise. So we need to take the safety precautions, the standard operating procedures that our government and our spokespersons have time and again been telling us, including our Prime Minister, those protocols that we have to follow, whether it be washing our hands, whether it be staying at a distance with each other, wearing masks, and of course avoiding any crowded places. To talk more about that, we've been joined by Dr. Nouman Zafar. Dr. Nouman Zafar is a physician of internal medicine at the University of Florida. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us all the way from the United States. Sir, firstly, before we come to Pakistan, how is the situation in the United States?
First of all, thank you very much for having me here. Conditions are extremely bad here, almost like 50,000 cases per day. I'm in Orlando. But even in Florida, there are about anywhere between 6,000 to 10,000 cases per day, and extreme amount of infection all over the country. Especially Florida is becoming a hotspot. On an average, I was seeing about in March and April about 1 to 2 cases a day, but now it increased up to anywhere between 5 to 7 cases, and mostly these are young girls and boys between 19 to like 25 years of age, who just don't pay attention to anything and just get very close to each other, going to restaurants or bars and other places, and that's why they're getting infected. And some of the young ones are very sick. Very sad. But even yesterday, there was like 23-year-old girl who's like extremely became sick, passed out, and this notion of that young people not going to get it or they're not get very mild, I don't think that's true. Yes, there's less chance of becoming very sick as compared to the older people, but Still, there are young people who are getting really sick and
All
they're
right.
getting
All
admitted
right.
in
Dr.
ICU.
Zafar, you talked about the youth of the US not following the standard operating procedures. Here also there are a lot of people who are not following the SOPs. Why is the government in the US not implementing strict SOPs to be followed by everybody? Because I know that a lot of states have slowly and steadily opened up. There's a soft opening of different areas in the country. Do you feel it is beneficial in the long run without the strict enforcement of SOPs?
So, what happened here? It's a whole different discussion. But as a federal government has left states alone to make decisions, and states have left cities and counties alone to make their own decisions. So every county, every city has their own guidance. So there is no standard SOP for whole of the country, for whole of the state. Even among states, Miami City has different SOPs. Orlando City has different. And that, in my opinion, as a doctor, I think that led to all this chaos because every mayor is trying to make their own decisions. And what they're doing is their decisions are not based on science or medicine. Their decisions are based on pressure by the people.
All right,
Like,
Dr. Zafar, let's come to Pakistan a little bit and talk about the local condition here. You understand what's happening in the US and you can, of course, relate to what is happening in Pakistan as well. The cases are increasing a lot since the last couple of days, and that was expected as well. But how do you feel our government can also enforce the SOPs? Because there are a lot of people who are not really following the standard operating procedures as far as wearing masks or cleaning their hands is concerned.
yes, so when all this started, in our doctor's opinion was the 100% lockdown is an answer. But you have seen in UAE, Saudi Arabia, they've done a genuine lockdown, but it did not work. So why it did not work? Because we as citizens, we have to behave. I mean, governments can do up to a limit. But if we're going to have parties at home with like 25 people, we're going to have marriage ceremonies with a lot of people around, and what if we even in public, if we don't pay attention and we get close to other people without wearing a mask, not doing social distancing, no government in the world can control this alone. We all have to join this effort, to be honest with you. I don't think just putting everybody at home, because this is not going away. It's going to be here for at least 6 months to 8 months or a year until we have vaccine and like a successful vaccine. Until then, we as humans, we have citizens, we have the responsibility, and we should show our duty that we behave.
All right. Dr. Zafar,
Hello?
also you talk about the proper behavior of the community at large. Do you feel there are sections of the community in Pakistan who do not understand the repercussions of COVID-19? Do you feel there is not enough information that is disseminated amongst the public?
Yes, again, same. I always say there is a human behavior is same, whether United States, whether in Pakistan. So there are people who are paying really like a genuine attention to what is going on. And there are people who doesn't have knowledge, especially in our villages. I think they don't even have knowledge. In my village, people don't have idea. Like they have no real idea what is corona and what is going on. And then there are people who understand everything and they still don't want to accept that this is a genuine problem.
All right. And finally,
And that's the
Dr.
reason.
Zafar, I'd like to ask you, there are rumors of a second wave of COVID-19 that might emanate in the autumn or in the winter. How true is that?
Means definitely, if we are not behaving, we're going to have second wave, we're going to have third wave. In right now, United States, we're already having second wave. And this is June and July, especially in Florida, the hottest months of the year. And we are having almost a second wave. But now coming winter, yeah, we definitely can have another wave. And I think, in my opinion, as a medical opinion, that even the first wave hasn't finished yet. In Pakistan, I think it's still the initial wave is going on. Yes, but definite, if people don't follow the SOPs, the second wave will come.
All right. And my last question to you, Dr. Zafar, how important is it for this ear-to-mouth also dissemination of information between the communities, between, for example, cousins or friends, to make them understand the importance of the SOPs?
Again, everybody has to play their part, whatever they understand, whatever language means they speak. I think everybody has to encourage each other. that we have to be careful. Even close family members, if they are living in the same house, then obviously they are living in the same house. There is no way you can do social distance. But if you are very close family members, then I think everybody, even if they meet, people will meet. People will go to the bazaars. People will go to shopping and other stuff. But I think if we just a little bit change our behavior, just stay about 6 to 8, at least 6 to 8 feet away. And if we're not in very close proximity, if we are very close proximity, definitely you have to wear a proper mask.
All right.
When some people
Thank you very much, Dr. Noman Zafar, to have joined us and to have given us the importance of disseminating the information and to follow the SOPs. Stay safe, ladies and gentlemen, because unless you don't follow the SOPs and stay safe yourself and follow the procedures, you will get it, and Pakistan might be in a hotter sauce than it is right now. Allah Hafiz.